Hello, friends. This is Dino. And in this segment, this is the part three of our four-part series, The Mystery of Christmas. I'm going to say a few words about King Herod. He was a character indeed. So we want to know why he was troubled when he heard about the birth of Jesus and who was King Herod. So King Herod was so wicked, he killed his wife and all his children due to fear of losing his throne. Just going through a little background of this wicked person. So, in order to see who was King Herod, we have to go to the beginning of the Bible, the whole salvation history. Let's go to the book of Genesis and talk about the fighting twins. So, in chapter 25, verses 21 through 26 of the book of Genesis, we read about the birth of the twins, Isaac's prayer and Rebekah's conception. Isaac prayed to the Lord on behalf of his wife because she was barren. She had no children. The Lord answered his prayer, and his wife Rebekah became pregnant. The Lord said to her, "Two nations are in your womb, and two peoples from within you will be separated. One people will be stronger than the other." And here's the key: and the older will serve the younger. You can go back to Genesis and read this in chapter 25. So when the time came for her to give birth, there were twin boys in her womb. The first to come out was red, and his whole body was like a hairy garment, like a hairy fellow. So they named him Esau. After this, his brother came out. Look at this significant. With his hand grasping Esau's heel, so he was named Jacob. So we have two brothers being born here. The first to come out was red and the hairy fellow, and he was Esau. So remember the name Esau and Jacob here as we move along. So then we read the two nations were formed. So Esau became the father of the Edomites, and then Jacob became the father of the Israelites. This is one of the significant stories in the Bible. And you can see a couple of references here in Genesis 25, verses 25 and 26. And the first came out red all over as a hairy garment, and they called his name Esau. And then look at the book of Romans, chapter 9, verse 13. As it is written, Jacob have I loved, but Esau have I hated. This is again significant, going back to what God said to Rebekah and Isaac, that the younger will rule over the older, right? So you can see already the story beginning how Jacob and Esau, they became adults and how they became separated, and at two nations separate, and they became two nations. So we said in the previous slide here that Esau became the father of the Edomites. So who were the Edomites? So these are, of course, the descendants of Esau, the firstborn son of Isaac and Rebekah. Twin brother was Jacob. God told Rebekah they would become two nations. God said the older would serve the younger. Esau would serve Jacob. Grandparents were Abraham and Sarah, and Esau married Ishmael's daughters. Oh, Esau married Ishmael's daughters. That is significant. in the history of salvation. Why? Then we have to see very quickly who was Ishmael. So remember, the first son of Abraham and Sarah was Ishmael, and that was not the promised son. The promised son was Isaac. So who was Ishmael's mom then? It was Hagar, the Egyptian maid. Okay, so you can go back to Genesis and read about all these things. So you can see Ishmael was not the promised son. And then so Esau married Ishmael's daughters. So you can see how this is going on here. The story, how it begins with Esau and how he was separated, and now he's marrying Ishmael's daughters. And so the Ishmaelites become the Arabs. So you have to go back to Genesis and read all the story, how Ishmael and Hagar, they were kind of sent out into the desert by Abraham, one of the heart-wrenching moments in the book of Genesis, and how the Ishmaelites, they become the Arabs to this day. The Arabs came from Ishmael, and Esau had a connection with the Ishmael's daughters. So what God says about the Edomites then? And I will lay my vengeance upon Edom. The Edomites came from Edom by the hand of my people Israel. And they shall do in Edom according to mine anger and according to my fury. And they shall know my vengeance, said the Lord. In Ezekiel chapter 25, we read this. So God was not happy about Edom, and he had a vengeance upon them. So because you, Esau, has had perpetual hatred and has shed the blood of the children of Israel by the force of the sword in the time of their calamity, in the time that their iniquity had an end. So you can see, you may wonder why God hated Esau, because it says here that he had perpetual hatred. So from the beginning, Esau, because he went to the Ishmaelites, married their daughters, and so he kind of went away. So, and he has shed the blood of the children of Israel by the force of the sword, so he was fighting with them. Now, let's bring this all to King Herod. Who are the Edomites today? Because King Herod was an Edomite. And that is why he was troubled when he heard about the prophesied birth of the new King Jesus. You can only imagine now how he was fighting the Edomites, and he came from the Edomites. So he's not like a true Israelite. You can say he was a half Jew. Okay. So in Jeremiah chapter 49, verse 10 says, but I have made Esau bare. That means just God has taken everything from him, and I have uncovered his secret places, and he shall not be able to hide himself. His seed is spoiled, and his brethren and his neighbors, and he is not. Okay, this is like it's very powerful, the statement here. His seed is spoiled, and his brethren and his neighbors, and he is not. Okay, so we have now established that King Herod originated from Esau, who became the Edomites. And you can see he's not even a full Jew or Israelite. He kind of went away and married the Ishmaelites' daughters. So this whole thing is messed up, so messed up with King Herod. And no wonder he's troubled at the announcement of the new king. So immediately he set out to search for baby Jesus to destroy him. Remember, he killed his own wife. He killed all his children because he was afraid they were going to take his place. Now, when they had gone, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream and said, Get up, take the child and his mother, and flee to Egypt, and remain there until I tell you. For Herod is going to search for the child to destroy him. Matthew chapter 2, verse 13. And just imagine the condition of Joseph and Mary at this time. They have a young baby, and now they have to, as if they didn't have enough trouble from Caesar Augustus and what he's going to do, when he hears about the euangelion, which we discussed in the previous segment, and now King Herod closer to home, and he is searching for baby Jesus. And so now Joseph had a dream and he had to run. So the distance from Jerusalem to Egypt by land is about 500 miles. It's not like, you just jump on a plane and then just land in Cairo airport or something. And so they probably took a donkey, and the donkeys, whenever the donkey wants to take a break, he will just simply sit down and he'll just go to sleep. Have you ever ridden on a donkey? That's how it is. So just imagine crossing the desert, a treacherous journey with all the people trying to kidnap others, asking for ransom, all of that, very dangerous. And I lived in Saudi Arabia for 13 years, and I traveled quite a bit there within the other countries as well. And the desert is a very dangerous place, extremely dangerous. And this couple, they were forced to travel 500 miles. So how did Herod become the king of Judea? You may wonder, well, he's the king there. How did he become the king? Well, here's the backstory. In 63 BC, before Christ, Roman general Pompey conquered Jerusalem. Okay? Now, this man called Antipater, he was Herod's father. He actually supported the Roman invasion. So you can see that the whole family, because they are Edomites, they were not that close to the Israelites. So you can see the animosity. It came from the twin brothers, right when Rebecca gave birth. So this is so ingrained with this culture. Okay, so that's why it was so easy for Antipater, the Herod's father, to support the Roman invasion. So also, as soon as the Romans came and took over the place, he became friendly to the Roman emperor and, the whole gang. And he also asked for citizenship, dual citizenship, Edomite and Roman. Hey, why not? He's a new friend in town. And he was helping the Roman to settle down as occupiers. So King Herod met Mark Antony, beautifully played by Richard Burton in the movie Cleopatra. If you never saw the movie Cleopatra, you must see it. Beautifully played by the character Mark Antony. So he was the Roman general under Julius Caesar, and he became a lifelong friend of King Herod. So Mark Antony appointed Herod as the puppet king of Judea. Okay, they were good friends. Okay, this is the backstory how he became the king. So, as you know, he was the most wicked king of all. King Herod killed his wife and all his children. So, also, King Herod ordered all male children under the age of 2 to be murdered because he couldn't find Jesus, but they ran away to Egypt. So, we read this unbelievable story in Matthew chapter 2, verses 16 through 18. Then Herod, when he saw that he was deceived by the wise men, remember the wise men, we're going to talk about it next week. I mean, in the next segment. They come to Israel following a star. They're looking for the new king. And then they of course, they go and meet with King Herod, and they tell him about this. And even though they were following a star, they had to go to the Jewish people to ask them about the new king. And they say, yes, this was prophesied all the way by Micah about 700 years ago, that he was going to be born in Bethlehem, Ephrathah. So then the wise men, they meet with King Herod, and he immediately he's afraid, and he's troubled, and then he plays a trick on them. He says, okay, go and find the this new king, and when you have found him, come and tell me, because I want to go and worship as well. So, but that's a trick. He's just kind of trapping them. But then what happened, the story, as you know, an angel appears in their dream, and they say, don't go back to Herod, just go back to your country, because he's not a good guy. He's going after the child. And so they took a different way, different route, going back to their own country. And that's what it is, the story here. Then Herod, when he saw that he was deceived by the wise men, was exceedingly angry, and he sent forth and put to death all the male children who were in Bethlehem and in all his districts, from 2 years old and under, according to the time which he had determined from the wise men. So then was fulfilled what was spoken by Jeremiah, the prophet, saying, a voice was heard in Ramah, lamentation, weeping, and great mourning, Rachel weeping for her children, refusing to be comforted because they are no more. So that's how wicked this king was. And finally, after King Herod died, Mary and Joseph returned home, another 500-mile trek through the dangerous desert. So, my friends, thank you for your time in watching this video. And again, my point is, this was not the Christmas that we know today for Mary and Joseph. They went through a lot. So one of the messages that tells us is, if you feel uncomfortable and you feel you're troubled, and whatever, things are not going well for you, take some comfort in this amazing story of Mary and Joseph with a young baby Jesus going through the desert, coming back, worried about Caesar Augustus, King Herod, and all the rest of it. So our trouble, I don't think it can be compared with their trouble. Okay, take some comfort in it, okay, in this Christmas season. Thanks, everyone, and I'll see you in the final segment about the wise men, one of my favorites.